YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I want to cover all of the Freemasonic coding that we've seen up to this date in the Charlie Kirk psychological operation event that occurred, the simulated assassination that we obviously see just the beginning outcomes of the very unhinged behaviors of the MAGA conservatives who are calling for doxing and calling for people to lose their jobs if they question the death of Charlie Kirk or if they celebrate the death of Charlie Kirk. And of course, they don't even realize that just like 4 years ago when everybody was complaining about how Democrats were calling for the jobs of people who were unvaccinated, now they are doing the same. And this has been the plan of the government for a long time, to use the left and the right, the controlled parties, where the politicians themselves are all in the same secret societies, they're all in the same clubs, they're all friends with one another. They pretend on screen to be two divided parties so that you go into one party or the other party and you remain divided as citizens. And the ultimate goal here is for the citizens to cancel one another out and remove one another's rights. And that's what we're seeing with free speech. That's what we're going to eventually see here with gun laws, one thing after the next as they bring in AI governance. And nobody, again, is paying attention to any of this stuff going on with the data centers, with Donald Trump bringing in AI governance directly from the World Economic Forum. But this is what's happening. We're seeing how unhinged people are, and they should be able to look at this event after the fact, after the first time they saw the footage, which, again, the first time you see an execution right in front of your eyes, or what you believe to be an execution, obviously you're going to be sucked in. You're going to be drawn in. You're going to be emotionally invested because it's a traumatic experience if you're thinking that something is happening in front of you, a murder is occurring in front of your eyes. And that's what it was. But it wasn't really, because what it was an actual controlled event. They want you to believe that there was an execution that occurred in front of your eyes so that you respond the way that everybody out there is responding. And the hope is that after it occurs, people will look at these events and start seeing suspicious behavior and realizing how over the top it's becoming, which makes it more obvious that it's a psychological operation. And nothing is more clear. If you didn't believe it in the beginning, you should be looking at the behavior of Erica Kirk, how Erica Kirk, 2 days after the assassination of her husband, watching her husband get his head blown off, or his neck blown off, supposedly, on national television, that she's out there giving pump-up rally speeches to MAGA, smiling ear to ear, and even giving us this dramatic performance, lying on the coffin, as I've already exposed, giving a speech, which I'll show you again momentarily. But what I want to point out is all the Masonic coding in here as well, so people could realize how these people leave their calling cards. No different than a serial killer collecting trophies or leaving their own calling card as well. So I'm sure many of you know this. Let's start here with Erica Kirk was lying over the casket, rubbing on her husband's wax figure hand. You could see that she's wearing a ring with a G on it. That G does not represent Gucci, ladies and gentlemen. The G, of course, represents the grand architect of the universe. The G is most prominently featured in Freemasonry. And let me show you this live clip again for anyone out there that hasn't seen it, so you can see just how over the top they're pushing this. The body is already, the body is already embalmed. They're done with the autopsy, even though, of course, everybody knows that this would never occur within 2 days. They wouldn't already be doing something like this, especially if a bullet was involved with the fragments from the actual bullet. But they wanted to give you a little show so they could suck you in deeper, because they don't expect people to look at this and look at it like a C-level movie. If you saw this in a movie, you would say, wow, that's really corny and really bad acting. But since it's in the real world, these people actually are sucked in to the psychosis. They don't even realize that it's not even a real body that she's laying in front of. But take a look again at this fictitious clip, this clip right out of Hollywood, and notice the G ring on Erica's finger.
I love you. I love you. I know. I love you. I love you. God bless you.
So again, you have that ring right there. You have some of the worst acting we've ever seen, some of the most bizarre behavior we've ever seen. And people like to give a pass to a lot of these actors after these events because they're trying to defend the story and defend the actual people that they think that they know and they think that they care for, and how they couldn't make this type of stuff up. So why are they acting and behaving that way? Well, everybody behaves differently. Oh, do they? Looks like she's got a nice little manicure, as most people pointed out. Got her makeup done for her speech, right? But she's wearing that G ring by design because they always leave their calling card. And who leaves their calling card? Well, serial killers and Freemasons do, and they're one and the same for the most part, because the majority of serial killers that you actually know are Manchurian candidates created directly from your own government. So that G we see on her ring is obviously notoriously known as the G that we see in the compass of Freemasonry. And again, it represents the grand architect of the universe. The Freemasons like to tell you that, well, in order to become a Freemason, you have to worship God. You have to believe in God. You have to believe in God to be a Freemason. That's what they say. So everyone's like, oh, so if you're a Freemason, then you're probably a Christian, or at least you believe in God, right? Well, that's where the public gets duped and doesn't look any further into what Freemasonry actually teaches and how this is infiltrated all the way down from the top to the local level where there's Freemasons in your town, and this is how they network in your towns, in your communities. But the God, the grand architect of the universe they're referencing is not our Father in heaven. It is their father, Lucifer. And as the 33rd degree Freemason Albert Pike, whose books they all are mandated to read, Albert Pike, you know, the same one whose statue they tore down that they're putting back up as part of their ongoing psyop of the left versus the right, the Black Lives Matters movement versus this new patriot national movement. This is right out of Albert Pike's teachings. That which we must say to the crowd is we worship a God, but it is the God that one adores without superstition. To you, sovereign grand inspectors general, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren of the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. The Masonic religion should be, by all of us, initiates of the high degrees maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. If Lucifer were not God, would Adonai, Jesus, calumniate, spread false and harmful statements about him? Yes, Lucifer is God. In other teachings, Pike says, strange and mysterious name to give the spirit of darkness, Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light, and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not. So the God of Freemasonry is Lucifer. And if you're wondering how the world is the way that it is, it's because these Freemasonic lodges exist in every one of our towns. They have fake windows so you can't peek inside and see the rituals that are done, but people like me have exposed it many times over, which is why people like me have been removed many times over. Because when you're able to start expressing this or teach this to people so they can understand it, right? You don't need to know every little secret about what's going on in the lodge unless you want to know. But people have a hard time wrapping their heads around, how is this person in on it? How are they in on it? How is that person in on it? How are these kids in on it? How could they orchestrate this? When you start explaining secret societies like Freemasonry and the Eastern Star and how they've infiltrated your towns, and that's how on a town level they've infiltrated your schools because they're the heads of the board, the board members of the education system. They're involved in everything in local communities. That's how. And it all comes from way, way up. And that's how it spreads down into your community through Freemasonry. And these are people who worship Lucifer. And they're the ones who have caused this left-right divide. And they're pretending with these Christian characters to lure Christians in so that they could lead them into their own demise. So some of the other Freemasonic codes we saw is Erica's speech. If you didn't notice, she was wearing the black and white symbols, the black and white colors that are so prominent in Freemasonry. I think if she actually wore a black and white checkerboard outfit, many people would have maybe been a little bit suspicious, but she wore the black and white colors during her speech, as did Charlie Kirk before his supposed assassination. He happened to be wearing black pants with a white shirt. And of course, we know these colors are symbolic to Freemasonry. Every lodge in the world, every Freemasonic lodge has black and white checkerboard floors. We see this obviously associated with many celebrities and used in many music videos and in many celebrities' homes. You see the black and white checkerboard floor very prominently placed. And the black and white checkerboard floor represents duality, as above, so below. The esoteric beliefs that they have, that your good deeds outweigh your bad deeds philosophy, which again, they believe, and it helps them sleep better at night, that their good deeds that they do will outweigh the bad deeds that they do. And it couldn't be more opposite, because there's no good deeds that come out of any of these Freemasons' ideologies. There's nothing good that comes out of it. They are hungry-seeking, power-seeking, narcissistic psychopaths who have caused nothing but chaos. And how convenient that one of the main mottos of Freemasonry, even if you ask Google and ask AI, is order out of chaos. And what do you see happening right now? Chaos. They're creating chaos so that they can bring in order, as in a new world order. Now, one of the other things that we see with Freemasonry, we see the black and white symbolism like I just showed you. You saw the G from the compass, also on Erica's ring, is the number 33. Number 33 is prominently placed in news stories as a code. This is how they communicate. This is how we know that these are hoax codes. They don't expect, when people like me expose these types of things, the masses to understand or actually care. They expect them to dismiss it and say that it's a crazy conspiracy. That's why they continue to use 33 in all of their operations. So what did we see? Well, we saw that the Charlie Kirk shooter, the murderer, was caught finally after a 33-hour manhunt. And again, the number 33 is significant in Freemasonry because it is the highest degree that an initiate can achieve. You see the number 33 used on a lot of their logos. It's a symbol of profound accomplishment and wisdom. It is the highest degree you could achieve inside of Freemasonry. You go through levels and degrees. Okay, you graduate to another degree. And upon, achieving finishing that degree and moving to another degree, you also are given knowledge. And eventually the knowledge that they're given is that Lucifer is the god of this world. That is what they are taught, and they worship Lucifer. And the number 33 is obviously significant. They didn't just pull it out of a hat. The number 33 is for multiple reasons, one of which, of course, it represents 1/3 of the fallen angels. The belief that 1/3 of the angels fell was Satan from heaven in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 4, which describes, again, the great dragon sweeping 1/3 of the stars of heaven and casting them to earth. The other reason is because Jesus is believed to have died at the age of 33 years old, and they're not using it to honor Jesus. They're using it as a form of mockery because they detest Jesus Christ, our King of Kings. So the 33-hour manhunt was one of the times we saw the number 33. And of course, this picture is one of the pictures that they use over and over and over again in many of the news articles and many of the news reports on national media, this photograph of him. And this is deliberately done. This is how they stage stuff. They had 3 hats, the 47, 11, 11, 11, which equals what? 33. They position and place things like this for a reason, and they photograph these things this way for a reason. Then they use these photographs right in front of our faces. Now, where else have we seen 33? For people out there that say, well, that's not enough for me, just seeing 3 hats with a 7 and a 4 and a 33-hour manhunt. Well, let's start with one of the more obvious ones, 9/11, right, which everyone should know was planned for a long period of time. In fact, 9/11 is believed to be the real birthday of Jesus Christ for anybody out there that isn't aware. But those towers were built to be torn down. And construction on the Twin Towers began in 1968. And it's not a coincidence that those towers, that controlled demolition occurred 33 years after construction began. We saw in the Illuminati card game the terrorist nuke card, which used, this card game is filled with predictive programming of what future events will look like, which I've covered many times over many of these events we've seen, including even COVID predicted in the card game, which doesn't mean that it's predicted. This is magic and how it works. They show you these things beforehand, which is why a lot of movies obviously show us these events happening before they actually happen. That's why after COVID happened, many people were saying, what about this movie and that movie? It looks a lot like COVID, Contagion, and everything else that we all were breaking down. So 33 years after construction began on the Twin Towers, they were torn down. We recently had, again, the Epstein files. The Epstein story itself is contrived by the government. It does not mean that the man himself is not an actual pedophile. Of course, he actually is. And really what people should be focusing on is the eugenics and all the things that were going on with Jeffrey Epstein and breeding children along with big tech corporations, CEOs like Jeff Bezos and Peter Thiel and a lot of the visitors to his Soros Ranch, which I'll cover in a separate video soon. But the whole thing with Epstein is a government-created rabbit hole. It's a government-created rabbit hole where they continue to give you these little psyops to drive you crazy and bring you in. Like the video footage of the cell and how they were missing a couple seconds to make you go, who cut the seconds? Hillary Clinton cut the seconds. And you just keep going without realizing that the news is there to F with you. It's there to manipulate you and F with you. And it couldn't be more clear with these psyops that we're seeing in today's world because they get more obvious by the day. But we saw the 33 with the Epstein files, right? U.S. House panel releases 33 pages of the Epstein files, right? Well, 33,000 emails. Remember that story with Hillary Clinton? The 33,000 emails that were deleted from her private email server, right? Even Giselle Maxwell, during the story of her, where people actually think that she's behind bars somewhere. Give me a break. She's on a vacation over in Tel Aviv. But one of the 33 witnesses that came on stage. Epstein's Zorro Ranch, 33,000 square feet. Recently, this event, which I broke down and is available on the website, where we had the stabbing on the Charlotte train, which was one of the fakest things we've ever seen, but people don't want to believe it's fake because they see this cute little blonde girl who's wearing a pizza shirt conveniently, get stabbed and then look in people's eyes and then look around for a while and not scream and then suddenly is no longer with us, unalived, right? Couldn't have been faker. Couldn't have been more ridiculous that people believe this stuff, but they get sucked in, right? And Kirk was one of the people who was pushing this before his fake offing, so now the alt-right media really wants to push this story. But $3.3 million were given by the left-wing MacArthur Foundation to the Mecklenburg County to reduce jail population. So he was out of jail because of some left-wing foundation giving $3.3 million to the jail. And they let this guy out, and then this guy went and stabbed this cute girl on a train. I mean, give me an utter break. Benny Johnson even putting it out right in front of everyone's faces, another controlled COINTELPRO agent. Broken down Johnson, broken down Shapiro, broken down Kirk, all part of the same snake. $3.3 million from the left-wing company, right, to fire up his audience. None of them see the 33 coding there. You may remember recently even this shooting where the gunman went into the Manhattan office and was looking for NFL headquarters and somehow wound up on the 33rd floor and shot himself, right? What was the motive? Well, we need more surveillance, right? Like I've said in the video, which is on the website as well, where you could see that square around the shooter, right? As we're going to bring in facial recognition and surveillance, and we'll be able to detect guns in the streets so that we don't have to worry about this guy or any guy going into a building where holding a weapon out in broad daylight. We'll be able to arrest him beforehand. We'll just use pre-crime. And if you're carrying a weapon, you'll be going to jail. So he conveniently shot himself on the 33rd floor. The Virginia Tech shooting was another one. 33 dead. You remember this whole operation with this supposed shooter. I mean, this was more of a false flag. This guy had Manchurian candidate written all over him. We had, of course, Sandy Hook. We had Remington offering a $33 million settlement to the families at Sandy Hook. And again, 33 is everywhere. It's always around us. You have it tattooed on Russell Brand's wrist, and he pretends that he's baptized, and that's all it takes for Christians because they're so gullible to get sucked in. And I'm a follower of Christ. Okay, and I say Christians are gullible. Christians that we see in today's world who are of this world are getting sucked into all of these psyops because they're of this world, right? And we're not supposed to be of this world. But Disney's another obvious one. Club 33 right in front of everyone's face. Disney is nothing more than a CIA operation. You see the mind control at its finest when it comes to Disney. You see these adults who are obsessed and addicted to Disney. They bring all their kids to Disney. They they didn't even realize they're bringing their kids to watch magic in front of them. All these movies about witchcraft. Pretty much the theme of every Disney movie has something to do with magic. Magic Rose, Magic Slipper, Magic Kingdom. Magic's not real. Witchcraft's not real, right? Give me a break. And it's right in front of everybody at Disney. Club 33. What do you think? They just picked the number 33 out of thin air at Disney, this exclusive club that happens to have black and white checkerboard floors inside of it? Yeah, sure. Because Walt Disney, of course, is a famous Freemason, and he's a famous De Millay as well. And De Millay, as I covered in my recent video, is the children's youth group, which is groomed by Freemasons. So they go and they groom young children to become better men. But they really groom them in a lot of different ways that you don't probably want to know about, but I'm sure you could assume. And here he is even wearing his De Millay robe. We've got the De Millay International Order with Walt Disney. Of course, if you don't know, underneath Disney is a massive underground network. Of course, which is built out by the CIA. This isn't fun times and fun land over there. A lot of abductions, of course, have occurred at Disney over the years. But Walt Disney just loves kids because he's a good guy, right? Nobody wants to believe that about Disney because they're under mind control. And they love Disney so much they refuse to break free. So we have lots of Masonic coding around this event. There'll be more to come. Every single news story, you have to pay attention to the numbers, the numerology. That's how they operate. But 33 is the most common code that we see. 33 is the most prominent number in Freemasonry. And what a coincidence, all these major events, it's always just 33. It's not like, hey, 53. I mean, or some random number. It's always 33 somewhere in there, whether it's the address, the number of victims, the age of the shooter, always in there. The 33-hour manhunt, right? So we have 33. We had Charlie sitting at the table with the 47 hats, 3 of them conveniently lined up, 11, 11, 11, which is 33. We had the 33-hour manhunt. We had all the black and white symbolism, including Charlie's last outfit that he was assassinated in happened to be black and white. And the outfit that Erica Kirk wore for her pump-up speech for MAGA 2 days after she witnessed her husband supposedly get his head blown off or whatever, and his shot in his neck. She wasn't even crying or emotional. She's talking about blueberries and rainbows and sunshine and how everybody needs to fight and get, go after one another more than ever before, right? Instead of actually grieving, because, no person on earth would ever be naturally responding that way. So she was wearing black and white during that speech by design. And the G, as I showed you earlier, the G on the ring couldn't be more obvious. Is anybody wondering where Charlie Kirk's wedding ring is, by the way? I know I saw a lot of you comment on that. Where's that wedding ring? Now, I mean, you'd think that he'd have his wedding ring on, but he didn't have it on. But of course, they'll probably make up an excuse for that as well. So here's the truth right in front of your face. This is a matter of whether or not you could accept it or not. Most people refuse to accept it. They think Freemasons are just doing keg stands as some type of fraternity in their town. I know someone who's a Freemason. Well, they're sworn to secrecy. Okay, you know what happens if you break that oath and what's happened in the past? Ask Mozart. Okay, you get offed. Okay, you get gang stalked and among other things. They take an oath and they go through all different rituals in Freemasonry to make sure that they never break that oath. So if you ask a Freemason if he worships Satan, you expect them to say, yeah, I worship Satan. When I expose witches and stuff like that, they come over and they're like, this guy's crazy, this stuff's not true. Well, what do you expect? The witches are going to say, yeah, we eat kids. Hansel and Gretel's real, right? What do you think? They fictionalized books like Hansel and Gretel about a witch cooking kids. And then they give it to you in the school. Oh, that's how they desensitize you to make you think it's all fiction when people like me talk about the truth. But throughout history, this is what has actually occurred. So people will defend Freemasons because Freemasons are sworn to secrecy. And then if a regular person speaks with them, they're not going to tell you, oh, well, by the way, on Saturday night, I was doing my 3rd degree ritual and I was in my tighty-whitey underwear and I had skid marks in the back and a blindfold on. And people were holding swords up to my throat and threatening me about my oath and loyalty to the brotherhood among all, right? How about Harry Truman, who said famously, although I hold the highest civil honor in the world, which was President of the United States, I've always regarded my rank and title as a past Grand Master of Masons, the greatest honor that had ever come to me. So being a Grand Master in Freemasonry was a higher honor than being the president. And what a coincidence that this Freemasonic president, as most of them are, happened to be the one who heavily endorsed in 1948 Israel becoming a state because that's when the state of Israel was created by man, the state of Israel versus spiritual, actual Israel, which again is in the Bible, which again, Charlie Kirk and none of these guys ever talk about. They're just pro-Israel. They don't explain to you the origins of the Balfour Declaration and what came out of World War II with the Rothschilds taking the land over there and then declaring it Israel so that we could be in the position we're in today, where there's mass confusion, where Christians will actually defend and speak for the mass murders and genocides that are occurring because they believe that they're the chosen ones. And if they question them, well, you know, they're not getting, God is going to punish them, right? And they don't even say, well, wait a minute, who is Israel? What is Israel? Are we Israel? Are we the real Jew? Are the people who believe in Christ are the real, actual Jews who are born again? Oh, interesting. No, I mean, we don't want to hear anything about the Ashkenazis or anything else. But anyway, back to Truman admitting to being a Freemason out in the open, admitting that it was his highest honor and degree. These Freemasons are never going to admit it to you on a local level. Your friend might be a Mason. He's not going to tell you the rituals that he goes through. And as they go through deeper rituals, keep in mind, the holding a sword to someone's throat might sound serious, but they go through blackmailing rituals where they have to commit like devious acts sexually in front of one another. And it doesn't mean like they're just going to have some guy bang some girl and all these guys are going to watch. It means they're going to do disgusting things. So you can only imagine what that means. Things that like, hey, if anyone ever found out about this, I could, go to jail or I could be ruined or destroyed. Those are the types of things they do. They do rituals where they can blackmail one another. And that's how they stay secret and quiet with one another. They photograph it and they hold it against them. And this is a pact and a bond that they have. And they're all afraid to break it because they do some of the most disturbing acts you could possibly imagine. But they want you to think that they're just there doing keg stands. They don't bother anybody. Of course, the only thing they ask for is for your child's DNA. Right, cool. Conveniently, they come out and they go, we have a child DNA program. We want to watch, make sure those kids don't get kidnapped or abducted. Oh, maybe people should start looking at the lodges if they want to see where some of these missing kids go and where it starts at, huh? Think about that. So Freemasonry all coded around this event, as most, or if not all, of these government operations are. And it's a government operation by the response, by the fact of how far they're cramming it down your throat. This whole thing with Erica Kirk was definitely a mistake, I believe, by the CIA, unleashing her, doing the funeral stuff. But unfortunately, like it is still bringing people in. Like I've said, they don't care so much because they know how dumb people are. But regular people who might have been like, this is crazy, this can't be fake, they should be looking at that footage of Erica Kirk and saying, this isn't normal. This is not normal behavior. This is acting. It's bad acting. It's over the top acting. It's almost like she's acting so much that she wants sympathy from me and she wants to suck me in even more. That's exactly right. That's what they're doing because there's a lot of laws and change and civil unrest that's coming because of this operation. Don't worry about Charlie. He's perfectly fine, as are all of these actors. He's just taken on a new role now. The character has exited stage left, and we've been brought in a new character right in front of us, Erica Kirk, who loves her Freemasonry symbolism as she wears her big G, which doesn't stand for Gucci. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.